fluid. It's the same thing with these other dimensions too. They atrophy if you're not using them. They strengths when we do stretch and challenge and so on and so forth. So there's many challenges we face on a daily basis, right? Many things we should resist that actually strengthens our conscience, right? Doing the right thing for our students, making that extra investment. Your conscience is saying, hey, go on, give that little bit extra here. And once you actually start doing it, some new energy. Amazing, actually, to find, to find energy, food, right, or rest. You actually create energy by using energy, right? You actually gain energy. And in terms of alignment, Dr. Martin Luther King said that neither safe, politic, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it's right. So that's why we really admire people like Nelson Mandela, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and so many other, and even ordinary people, right? When they live a life in alignment, they're doing the right thing, they're making that effort. It's not easy, but they're doing it, right? And that actually makes all the difference. So what does character, how do we grow our character? Let's talk about that. So let's get into the essence of this presentation now, right? Character. So character is very simply the manifestation of our conscience in the forms of habits. When we do good things, right, we are strengthening our character. That is actually living in alignment with our conscience and the moral principles, right, that it points to. Okay, when we have good habits, health, to sacrifice, willing to contribute, for example, we are strengthening our conscience. We are manifesting our conscience by those good actions. For example, learn how to relate with each other. It's bound by blood, especially extended families. And this is something that's I see very strong here in Africa, right, here in Kenya. In the weekends, everyone goes to their families. They go out to the countryside. Nairobi is like a ghost town, right? Because the family is that precious, okay? And, those familiar relationships are not on automatic pilot. So, for example, those of you, when you have a child or even your parent, or if you have a spouse, you cannot take those relationships for granted, okay? You have to prioritize them. So, for example, on Sunday, I left on this trip on Monday, right? But on Sunday, the day before the trip, you know how it is if you're traveling internationally, like the whole day before is like you don't do anything else but organize for the trip. You're catching up on last minute business, the last emails, you're packing. It's like, that day is dedicated to preparing for the trip, right? But actually, I had made an arrangement with a park in Seattle. It's called Discovery Park. If you ever come to Seattle, you should go to Discovery Park. It is like it's on it's on the Puget Sound. It's like there's a beach there. It's like an amazing place, and we decided we would go for a walk. Right now, this is like totally insane for me to do this on the day before the trip, but I actually prioritized this. Right, that this was important to spend time with my son, and he also was busy. And he also prioritized to spend time with me. We were only going to do 2 hours, but we did 6 hours, right? And I was not looking at my watch. Oh, I need to get back and pack. We both wanted to prioritize this. And in fact, when I reflected upon it later, I actually, I had an interesting experience. I felt that our relationship jumped to kind of a slightly new level compared to ever before. And I was wondering, like, why did that happen? Do you know what I mean? But it happened because I prioritized this. And he did too, right? So, this is kind of making that worthwhile investment, or giving an appreciation, right? Appreciating a teacher, that if you're the principal of the school, appreciating a teacher appreciating a student, acknowledging that they've done something right, do you know what I mean? And not taking them for granted. That way you are creating good habits, good behaviors, good actions, and your conscience is getting stronger, right, as a result, and so is your character, okay? So let's talk about the cultivation of character, right? I want to go into this section here, right? So this is where it becomes very, very real. This is not something nice to have. This is now really, character is becoming, in the world today, this is what is actually making all the difference, okay? And it's a core part of this campaign of transforming education in the global south. It's not just for the education sector, it's actually for society overall. So when you look, do they have a positive attitude? These are character qualities, right? How are they as an individual? How do they carry themselves? What are their values, right? This is number one, right? Number two is relationships, right? How do they affect others around them? Have you had colleagues in the past that were not easy to work with? Did you have fun with those colleagues? Nobody likes that, right? Are people going to like working with them? Okay. So it's very interesting that in 2022, Tesla had 3.6 million job applications. Can you believe that? 3.6 million in 1 year. And they hired 1 out of 28, right? That's like 1 out of 200, okay? It's actually harder to get into Tesla than it is to get into Harvard University, right? So this is what they're hiring on. And then it continues, like number 3, skills. Does that person have the ability to solve problems? If they did solve some problem and they cited that in the interview, then Elon will ask, what were the key decisions you made that solved that problem? Or was it someone else on the team that did it and you're just like playing off them? What was your role to solve the problem? They will find this out like super fast, right? And then we're looking at another area, which is the application of knowledge. What direct responsibility? And the person, was this the person who was really, right? This is the kicker, this next piece. Ability is not necessarily the case to have a college degree or high school. It is not necessary to have a college degree or a high school credential to get hired at Tesla? What do educators really value more than gold? College degrees, right? Credentials. And we, we pride ourselves in this, right? But the real world, they don't care about this anymore, actually, right? And this is not just Tesla. You go to Google, Berkshire Hathaway, all of them, right? They're all dialed into this, okay? And then, so Tesla is hiring on this framework. So this morning we spent time mapping out this framework. This is this pyramid that's facing the right way up. It's stable, and it's not run on knowledge acquisition like the other one, right? It is running on character, and these companies are hiring first on character. Next, this is the batting order. The next is relationships. Are you able to collaborate with others? Are you a good team member? Are you able to pioneer new knowledge through teamwork, right? Do you have the energy and vitality to go through the day? Are you conked out by 11 a.m. and you're useless for the rest of the day, right? This means you're taking responsibility for your physical health, right? And finally, are you able to solve problems? Are you actually a complainer, or are you actually a solution builder, right? Do you actually come up with the solution? Do you go to your boss to complain, okay, hey, Mr. Boss or Mrs. Boss, these are all the problems here. This is the reason why this isn't getting done. Or are you the person that actually takes some time and brainstorm like 3 different solution options and say, hey, we have a bit of a problem, but I came up with 3 solutions. I'm going to run them by you. This is the one I recommend. What do you think? What do you think that boss will say? Oh no, those solutions are terrible, right? Go back to the drawing board. 9 times out of 10, what will that boss say? What do you think they're going to say? How about if you have an employee and there's a problem, they've come up with potential solutions to run by you. Here are 3 potential solutions. This is the one I recommend. What will you say to that person? Will you say, that solution is no good? What will you 9 times out of 10, what will you say? This is a question. You're supposed to answer it. What will you say? Yeah, go with it, right? Yeah, just do. Yeah, go ahead and do it. You think that boss in microscopic detail and spend 3 days coming up with potential solutions, if they have an entrepreneurial employee who's actually doing this, right? So these are the kind of graduates we need to actually be releasing from our educational institutions. And Elon said that the biggest past hiring mistake he made by a long shot was looking too much at intellectual capability. But in this sector, the education sector, which is supposed to be producing the graduates for the modern workforce, puts a premium on intellectual capability and a massive deficiency on character, relationships, vitality, the other dimensions, right? That's why we're here. We are here today for these 3 days to reset ourselves, right? We are on a bad momentum in this sector, right? We are heading to an iceberg, like the Titanic, right? You know, we need to get off this ship, or we are going to be kaput, and find a lifeboat or a rescue boat and start heading. Saying they in the world. They also hire on initiative and physical energy. Can you believe this? We're talking about physical vitality. They hire on that, right? And lastly is intelligence. Let's talk about the centrality of character, right? That this is so important. What do you think is more essential? Let me ask you, this is a rhetorical question. Do you think talent is more important or character is more important? Wow, you guys have been listening this morning. Wow. I think, Daniel, we're making good progress here, right? Yeah, we might be able to wrap up the workshop this evening. No, you're not. We have a lot more to talk about. You're coming back tomorrow and the next day, right? And so character is way more essential than talent. So let me give you an example. Diego Maradona in the 1980s, right, the late 70s, 80s, was actually was the #1 soccer player in the world. Everyone was talking about Diego Maradona, right? So in 1986, right, the World Cup was going on, and Argentina was actually matched up with England, right, in the quarterfinals. And in the second half, there was no score in the first half, but in the second half, Diego Maradona, the ball came in high. He jumped up to head it into the goal, but his hand actually slammed the ball into the goal, right? The referee didn't see it. And then he went out to mask that mistake by rallying up his team. Yay, we scored the first goal, right? And the English team saw this, and the spectators saw it, right? And, this goal went down to, it actually got a name. It's called the Hand of God, right? It should have been called the Hand of Satan, but it was actually called the Hand of God, right? Okay? But what was really remarkable, this is the most remarkable thing of all, like 5 minutes later, literally 5 minutes later, Diego Maradona scored what was probably called the goal of the century. He went from the defense of the opposing team, rallied up through the entire field, through incredible opposition, and scored a goal, right? That was called the goal of the century, actually, in the soccer world. But what is he remembered for today? The goal of the century, or that he cheated, right? He is remembered for he later admitted that he cheated, right? So here's a person with incredible talent, but he did not have the character, and he got away with it in the interim. Actually, Argentina later won the World Cup. But if if this Hand of God goal was not allowed, which it shouldn't have allowed, that could have changed the entire dynamic. England could have probably won that World Cup, right? So this was actually cheating, right? And then here's another story. Lance Armstrong, you know who this is? The cyclist, right? He won 7 Tour de France titles, right? And he was somebody that overcame cancer. So people really admired this man, right? But later a reporter found out that actually the guy was using steroids, right? Was using drugs. Not just him, but his entire team. And actually later he was stripped of all seven Tour de France titles. And in actually 2012, the United States Anti-Doping Agency named him the ringleader of the most sophisticated, professionalized, and successful doping program that has ever been seen in sports, right? So, this man was admired in the process, but then he was cheating the whole time, right? Someone with great talent, somebody that got, that people were modeling their kids' lives after, right? Gone in a microsecond. It takes a lifetime to build up your credibility. It can be compromised in a microsecond, okay? And we were talking about corruption this morning. We're trying to build up Africa, stimulate an African renaissance. This takes character. It takes moral and innovative leadership for this to get, this is the building block of the African Renaissance, right? Character, moral and innovative leadership like that, right? This is another athlete, right? John Wooden, very, very famous coach, right? From the University of California in Los Angeles. He said, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you are. In other words, this is what's manifesting the standards of your conscience, right? It's manifesting the spiritual universal laws, right, and moral laws, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. So character, right, is what you are. This is what defines us. It's not how smart you are that defines you. It's your character that really defines you and identifies you, right, at its core, okay? And there's standards of character. Character, there's also something called bad character too, right? So character has different levels, right? We usually associate it with good character, and in the sense we're talking about in this workshop, we're more this is a rating scale. Character can be bad, poor, fair, good, or great. So we have a few people that you might recognize here on the screen, right? Some of them have not such good character, and some of them have really great character, right? So what about Hitler? And what about Mao Zedong or Joseph Stalin? Would you say they had really great character? Would you say they had like fair character? How about bad character? Actually, bad character would be generous. It's more like super bad, right? Super bad would be a more accurate term. Whereas Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and people like that, they had great character, right? They didn't kill anyone. They used non-violence, not like the other guys, right? So we admire those people. And, you know, they suffered a lot, but they sacrificed, they contributed for the greater good. So, you know, since 2000, right, this is what I kind of have learned, right? The education sector, this sector that we're all in, started actually, and this was a good thing, they started realizing we need to be developing skills, right? And a terminology came up called 21st century skills, right? And, you know, this became like a big thing in the sector, and it still is today, right? Let's actually build resilience and creativity and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the skills, right? The thing about these skills that you're seeing up there is that they're actually value neutral. Creativity, resilience, communication, collaboration, problem solving, even being entrepreneurial, these are value neutral skills. In other words, they can be put to a good use, or they can be put to a bad use, right? Now let me ask you this. Hitler, right? Do you think Hitler was creative? Let's just speaking objectively. Do you think he was resilient? Do you think he had he had great communication skills, right? Do you think he had good collaboration? He sure did. Do you think he was a problem solver? He was going to actually take over the entire world. Mahatma Gandhi, do you think he was creative? Collaborative? A great communicator? A great problem solver? A great entrepreneurial mind? I mean, he actually did something unprecedented, right? And he did it through non-violence. He liberated India from the British colonial power, right? The difference here is character. Skills cannot stand alone, you know, and this is the mistake, a little mistake we've been making in the sector. We've been putting a premium on these skills, that these are the greatest thing since sliced bread or something, right? But we're missing the linkage to character, right?